You think you choose women. You don't. Instinct chooses for you, then lies about why. Schopenhauer warned, "A man's love is vision clouded by the species' will. That will wants offspring and obedience, not your happiness." Every time you swipe right, dopamine spikes nature's cattle prod. Every time she smiles, testosterone drops nature's muzzle. Desire breeds illusion. By the time you realize, you've negotiated your freedom for a fantasy coded into your DNA. How many choices are truly yours, and how many were prepaid by evolution? Dowries were the first dating apps only, the currency was goats. In ancient Mesopotamia, clay tablets list brides priced in silver and barley, proof that marriage began as a ledger for lineage. Fast forward a millennium to Sparta, where raiding parties staged mock kidnappings so soldiers could claim wives without disrupting. Military schedules, love songs, optional. The contract came first, sentiment later. Shift again, swipe culture in 4G glow, where an algorithm scrolls 1,000 faces inside a minute, sorting your next heartbeat by radius and residual income. The platform feels modern, yet the blueprint is archaic: exchange, acquire, reproduce, repeat. Arthur Schopenhauer peered at this pattern and concluded love is just species-level scripting disguised as poetry. He called it the genius of the race, a biological will using our emotions as puppet strings to secure genetic survival. We believe we fall in love. Nature knows we fall into line. Harvard neuroscientists recently confirmed part of his cynicism. Place a man in an fMRI scanner, flash his partner's photo, and watch the prefrontal cortex, the logic seat dim like theater lights before a show. At the same moment, reward circuits flood dopamine, converting critical thought into applause. The mind that negotiates contracts, drives cars, and files taxes becomes an enamored spectator to its own chemical coup. Desire breeds illusion. Instinct does not ask permission. It prints the paperwork while you draft sonnets. The ticking clock starts the moment attraction ignites. Adrenaline peaks within 90 seconds, oxytocin within 5 minutes, and both decline before rational analysis can finish a cost-benefit sheet. By then you've promised weekends, passwords, maybe a mortgage collateral, offered on behalf of a species you never elected to represent. Anthropologists note how each era rebrands the same bargain. Bronze Age dowry coins become diamond rings. Bride raids become viral proposals on building rooftops. Tinder super likes replace village matchmakers, yet all revolve around unseen clauses. Secure the healthiest genes, maximize offspring viability, hedge against resource scarcity. We call it romance because spreadsheets kill the mood, but the ledger doesn't vanish. It hides behind candlelight and bios that read sapiosexual, calculating reproductive math while you debate favorite films. Imagine a silent auction where bids are placed in neurotransmitters instead of cash. You raise your paddle with a glance. She counters with a laugh. The hammer drops before either party inspects the fine print. That's courtship under evolutionary governance, seduction accelerated, reflection deferred. Only later, sometimes, years later, do we flip the contract and gasp at its clauses, jealousy penalties, custody fees, midlife restlessness interest rates. Every compliment, every caress, every dream of shared sunsets is a signature inked by impulses older than language. The smarter you are, the cleverer these impulses dress themselves, quoting Rilke, playlisting indie bands, staging metaphysical debates, anything to convince you free will author the attachment. Yet biology filed the papers, notarized by desire, stamped by illusion. If biology signed the papers for you, what exactly did you just buy? Victorian London stitched its secrets beneath whalebone and satin. A corset cinched to 17 inches signaled chastity, wealth, and the willingness to suffer for both. 200 years later, the lace is digital. Facetune narrows the waist, softens the jaw, and posters it to 4 million strangers before breakfast. The hardware evolved, but the strategy endures visibility as leverage. Women once crowded parlors to perfect a fainting posture. Today they crowd ring lights, perfecting a pout that hints at devotion while advertising scarcity. Men play the parallel game. In 18th century salons they flaunted canes tipped with amber and swing clocks, heavy as conscience. Fast forward to Wall Street recessions, and Patek Philippe sales spike 27% within months of a market dip. When the world feels unstable, status symbols double as talismans, proof that the wearer still belongs to the category called desirable provider. If women refine allure, men curate certainty. Both are costumes tailored for the same audition. Mask number 1 off. That phrase tempts removal, yet masks mutate. Swipe a dating profile. Men pose with yachts they rented for an hour. Women list yoga retreat schedules financed by student loans. The difference is angle, not substance. Each persona feeds an algorithm that rewards exaggeration. Studies show the global cosmetic industry now clears $500 billion a year pigments and serums, not just smoothing skin, but veneering fear. Meanwhile, luxury watch firms reported record profits in 2020's economic freefall, because nothing says crisis averted like wearing a clock that costs more than the average annual wage. Jung called the persona a protective facade, necessary but perilous if mistaken for the self. The shadow collects whatever traits persona censors. A woman cultivates softness. Her ambition exiles to the basement. A man flexes competence. His vulnerability locks behind steel doors. Over time, the repressed traits grow hungry, leaking through sarcasm, anxiety, or sudden rage, evidence that the mating performance taxes more than it pays. Victorian doctors documented female hysteria, prescribing rest cures when repressed desire erupted as fainting fits. Modern influencers experience a similar collapse. Manic posting cycles followed by digital disappearances labeled self-care breaks. Different century, same shadow, demanding airtime. Markets accelerate the masquerade. Algorithms don't sell authenticity. They quantify aspiration. If vulnerability received more clicks than perfection, serum sales would pivot overnight. But polished fantasy keeps consumers chasing unattainable mirrors, ensuring recurring revenue. The species pays cash. The market pockets profit. Market sells. Masks. Species pays cash, yet cracks appear. Every time a model posts an unfiltered acne selfie, engagement triples. When a tech CEO admits therapy saved more revenue than hustle, stock stabilizes. The audience may still reward spectacle, but it worships relief, evidence that someone, somewhere, dared drop the script. Mask number 1, off, becomes not only a declaration but a commodity itself. Brands now hawk authenticity packages, lessons, and curated honesty. The masquerade metastasizes, appropriating its own rebellion. Pause. Breathe. Picture the shadow's ledger. Hours posing, dollars spent, emotions deferred. Picture also the moment a mask slips bare face under harsh lighting, wrist bare of status metal, and someone across the table exhales, sensing kinship and imperfection. In that instant, competition converts to connection, and biology recalculates. Value beyond glossy traits. Who, then, truly profits when authenticity is collateral? The Sumerians believed the goddess Inanna chose kings by desire alone, her gaze the final signature on every throne. 21st century data scientists say the myth persists in swipe ratios. Women like only 4% of male profiles, while men approve nearly half. Evolutionary psychologists call the pattern hypergamy, a preference for partners with equal or higher resource status. Critics brand it gold digging, but the genome calls it risk management. Pregnancy is leveraged debt. Choosing a partner who can service that debt is rational, not ruthless. Researchers at the University of Texas discovered another layer. During ovulation, women rank deeper male voices as more attractive. 2 weeks later, preference tilts back to mid-range tones. Voice pitch attraction subtle, unconscious, measurable. The larynx becomes a stock ticker of testosterone, signaling immune strength and potential paternal investment. Meanwhile, men's vocal cords drop instinctively when speaking to women they find desirable. Nature's own negotiation, trading. Resonance for relevance. Schopenhauer witnessed similar dynamics but interpreted them through a darker lens. He called woman nature's trap, claiming her tenderness masks the species' coercive will to replicate. In his view, female choice as not strategy but camouflage. Men are conscripted, women are conduits, both enslaved by the next generation's hunger. Yet modern ethnographic studies from Maasai herders to Manhattan executives reveal something his cynicism missed. Women wield choice not merely to secure genes, but to navigate systemic threats, violence, poverty, social sanction. Selection is shield, not snare. Consider the ovulatory shift studies often cited as proof of biological puppetry. Yes, women at peak fertility prefer symmetrical features and competitive postures. But the same data shows a parallel uptick in risk assessment. Women avoid unfamiliar men more rigorously during high fertility windows. Attraction accelerates toward viable mates, while caution fortifies against opportunistic predators. Instinct, it seems, can multitask. A 2019 analysis of dating app behavior during economic downturns found that female message rates to men in stable professions increased 23%, while interest in purely aesthetic attributes declined. When uncertainty spikes, selectivity sharpens. Not vanity, survival calculus. The algorithm quantifies what myths once painted with divinity. Do women wield choice, or does biology wield both of us? The question hangs like static between heartbeats, reminding us that freedom and programming are co-authors of every romance. Desire breeds illusion, but illusion isn't always deceit. Sometimes it's a tactical mirage that lures resources toward vulnerability and shields new life from chaos. Choice is chess, not roulette. Critics argue that framing women as strategists slides perilously close to manipulation tropes. Yet dismissing, strategy erases agency, reducing half the species to passive vessels. Balance lives in acknowledging dual authorship. Genes whisper, culture amplifies, consciousness edits. When a woman chooses a partner, she negotiates not just DNA, but rent prices, healthcare access, and reputation economies. Schopenhauer saw only the puppet strings. Modern research maps the puppet's hands, cutting threads dot. So if selection is strategy, what happens when the board flips? A Fortune 500 boardroom dims its lights for an emergency call. The CEO's voice shakes as he confirms rumors. Yes, he diverted $8 million of R&D funds to a shell account. Why? Because a woman half his age promised a future of clean slates and Caribbean sunsets if he could just unlock liquidity for the paperwork. He had viewed himself as rational titan of industry until the moment attraction rewired his valuation. Model. Later, forensic auditors mapped his brain patterns. Dopamine blast at every secret text. Serotonin plunge after each wire transfer textbook crash loop. Investors called it greed. Neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky would call it reward prediction error. The larger the expected payoff, the more the brain discounts risk signals already blinking red. Thousands of miles away, a combat platoon waits for extraction. One soldier abandons formation, sprinting toward a local informant he insists might shelter a hidden child. The intel is unverified, the path mined, yet he runs. After court-martial, he confesses he'd romanticized the informant's kindness into a bond a narrative strong enough to override years of drilled caution. Brain scans reveal heightened activity in his limbic system, identical to early-stage infatuation. Adrenal circuitry hijacked mission protocol. Discipline dissolved. Under the illusion of emotional rescue. The price, 2 comrades wounded, 1 career ended. All because hormones mistagged fantasy as duty. Scroll any Ensel forum at 2 a.m. and you'll see the same electrical storm turned outward. Threads dissect facial symmetry ratios, lament. Height genetics and brand women as hypergamous villains. The core equation never changes. Looks equal access. Therefore, lack of looks equals exile. Yet data shows men consistently underrate loyalty cues, empathy, shared humor, resilience, while overrating surface metrics. The marketplace of attraction is crowded with masks both sexes wear, but men's blind spot is a spotlight. They see the glitter, miss the glue. Mask number 1 off. Strip status, strip aesthetics, and a quieter truth emerges. The male brain's reward system evolved for scarce opportunities. Modern abundance hacks that wiring into self-inflicted scarcity. There's always a better swipe, a hotter tab, a louder validation. Each near miss pumps dopamine, each ghosted chat dumps serotonin. Looping until mental portfolios hemorrhage time, money, or sometimes national security. Sapolsky's experiments with macaques found they press levers faster when rewards are unpredictable. Human dating apps replicate the variable ratio schedule, perfectly match. No match, super-like training men to chase uncertainty with compulsive fervor. The cost shows up in GDP-sized divorces, lost battalion objectives, and CEOs who trade decades of empire for an evening's chemical theater. horny brains misprice. Risk.quick paradox. Men overrate appearance because biology once made youth a proxy for fertility, but underrate loyalty because history rarely punished kings for disloyal queens. They just replaced them. In democracy and corporate bylaws, consequences scale differently. The modern world charges compound interest on ancient shortcuts. So pause before the next impulse purchase of desire. Ask why the prefrontal cortex went silent, why the dashboard lights are flashing while the steering feels dreamy. What story? Did chemistry whisper that legacy could not refute? How many empires fell because one heartbeat ignored history? Schopenhauer painted woman as nature's velvet snare, the unconscious jailer of male freedom. Feminist philosophers answer with a ledger he never saw. Simone de Beauvoir noted that patriarchy drafts women into complicity, rewarded for allure, punished for autonomy, blamed for a game they did not code. Modern sociologists tally the hidden fees. Women perform 2/3 of global emotional labor, soothing egos, remembering birthdays, translating silence into harmony. Yet most of that work never appears on corporate spreadsheets or love's balance sheet. If biology scripts attraction, culture scripts maintenance, and maintenance is exhausting. Recent meta-analysis across 32 countries shows couples who share emotional labor enjoy lower cortisol, stronger immune markers, and an 18% bump in life expectancy compared to single counterparts. Pair bonding, when reciprocal, isn't a prison. It's an exoskeleton against chaos. Neuroscience corroborates long-term partners, sinking heart rate variability recover from stress 40% faster. Evolution may bait the trap, but it also funds the shelter. Schopenhauer's cynicism missed a crucial variable. Agency grows the moment awareness enters the loop. When we recognize the instinctive code, we can debug it. A woman conscious of hypergamy can choose generosity over opportunism. A man aware of surface bias can prioritize loyalty over novelty. The species writes the first draft. Consciousness edits for nuance. Cynicism without nuance cages both sexes. Distrust crystallizes into dogma, scrolling red pill feeds where bitterness masquerades as truth. But truth without empathy calcifies into another mask, another algorithm selling rage. Integration demands binocular vision. See the primal script and the human author revising it in real time. So keep the mantra desire breeds illusion, but add its counterpart. Awareness breeds choice. Pair bonding can evolve from transaction to collaboration, from instincts chessboard to partnerships jazz. The code is real, yet we are not condemned to run it blindly. Can you stare into the abyss of instinct and still choose compassion? Your appetite for change begins with silence. For 24 hours, accept the abstention challenge. No screens, no flirting glances, no romantic playlists smuggled into work breaks. Cut every filament that delivers cheap intrigue. Hour 1 feels like fasting in a bakery. Hour 12 like waking from anesthesia. By hour 24, the nervous system tastes its own baseline. For the first time in years, no dopamine spikes. To camouflage restlessness, no blue light lullabies to postpone the night. Now open the Desire Audit Journal. List every crush, fantasy, or impulse that surfaced during abstention. For each, Ask 3 questions. 1. What promise did it whisper? 2. What risk did it hide? 3. Was the cost visible or deferred? Patterns emerge. Certain smiles promise escape. Certain texts promise validation. Certain memories promise rescue. Most deliver none. The page becomes a map of triggers once mistaken for destiny. Next. Practice stoic negative visualization. Picture the attraction object disappearing, her phone disconnected, his profile deleted, the entire dating app wiped from servers. Imagine the vacuum left behind. Your brain protests with panic. That's the reward circuit begging for the next hit. Sit with the void until the panic subsides into clarity. The hunger was for imagined futures, not present reality. Repeat the mantras back to back like forging steel. Desire breeds illusion. Mask number 1 off. Each line sandpapers the reflexive layer of the psyche, revealing choice beneath compulsion. Picture the man from our opening hook, standing at passport control. The officer studies his documents. Behind her, a traveler's smile catches his eye precisely the curvature that once bypassed his prefrontal firewall. He feels the script begin to load. Pulse quickens, status fantasies spool, risk assessment mutes, but training interrupts. He names the sensation, chemical draft, inhales for 4 counts, exhales for 8, and watches the projection pass like airport advertising. He responds with a nod of respect, not a surrender of narrative. Response over reflex. Neuroscientist Judson Brewer calls this disenchantment. The moment craving loses its glamour because you have watched it from inception to fade out. Functional MRI scans show that when subjects label cravings rather than obey them, activity in the posterior cingulate cortex seat of rumination drops sharply. Awareness rewires the will by starving illusions of secrecy. Embed the protocol. Interrupt, notice the surge. Label this is script, not soul. Exhale, lengthen the breath, shrink the urge. Choose engage or let pass, but consciously sign the cost. Rinse through daily rituals until craving is an email, not a subpoena. If abstention felt like drought, moderation now feels like rainfall. You control valves open or close at command. The appetite remains, but the leash rests in your hand. Not the species' invisible fist. If you decode the spell, what freedoms return? Curiosity opened the first door. A question about why one smile could override centuries of philosophy. Threat waited on the other side, revealing biology as a puppeteer willing to trade empires for a heartbeat. Insight arrived when the strings came into view. Dopamine loops, shadow masks, mating algorithms exposed in harsh fluorescence. And finally, choice, the discovery that a spell loses power the moment you can name its ingredients. Now the rebellion needs paperwork. Download the Will Override Worksheet, 10 brutal prompts that pit instinct against intention. Note every craving, every justification, every whispered lie about just this once. Mark whether it serves the species, the market, or your actual values. Sign and date. Liberation is a legal document between you and yourself. Keep the worksheet visible, taped to your mirror, screenshot to your lock screen, tucked behind the credit card you once used to finance fantasy. When the next illusion glides across your retina, pause long enough to hear the pen you wield scratching a different ending. You are not erasing desire. You are renegotiating its contract. Curiosity made the breach. Threat sharpened the stakes. Insight wrote the clause, and now choice completes the signature. Comment. Mask number 1 off. Grab your worksheet and subscribe. If you prefer conscious choice over coded desire, because instinct reloads at dawn every day.